Okay.
Started. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February 17th, 2022 meeting of the City of Palo Alto's Public Art Commission. We are going to start our meeting tonight with our roll call. Commissioner Miyagi.
Present.
Commissioner Waltuck.
Present.
Vice Chair Gordon.
Present.
And Chair Taylor present. Thank you. Any agenda changes, additions, or deletions?
There are not. At this time, I also do want to note that we are joined by our council liaison, Lydia Koo, Councilmember Koo. Thank you and welcome for joining us.
Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
No members of the public in the audience in attendance.
Great, thank you. And our first item of business is to approve minutes from January 20th, 2022. Do I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Great. And we'll do our roll call. Commissioner Waltuck.
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi.
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon.
Yes.
And Chair Taylor, yes. Thank you. And now on to our city official comments.
So we have a couple of really exciting things to announce this evening.
Great.
We'll see which visual Nadia decides to throw up first. So our artist in residence, Reyes Magos, is kicking off his residency now, and he has titled it Rituals of Resilience, because he is focused in on how what rituals and habits have people taken up during this stressful time to get them through it. So we are working on a schedule of meet and greets and art making, and he's already partnered with quite a few mental health partners within the community. So stay tuned for more details on some of those. We do know that he is going to have an appearance with our partners at the Art Center. They're having a community day on April 10th, and he will have a meet and greet booth there with more information for people who may want to circle back and participate. So he is in his studio at Coverly currently, and stay tuned for details. So that's really exciting. And the next thing we have is we had a pretty quick turnaround after the commission approved the funding for the next round of microgrants. These are fewer microgrants, slightly larger in funding. They're $4,000 microgrants. So we have the call that is open. It is open through March 31st at midnight. You will find that on the Palo Alto Public Art page under Artist Opportunities. You can see the full call there, and we'll be taking submissions through Sligram. And that's it for staff comments this evening.
Great, thank you, Elise. Our first action item is adoption of resolution.
So as a reminder, we have done this now the past several months. This is a resolution that allows the commission to hold the meeting for today, the next 30 days, remotely in this format. Very similar to the last few months that we've adopted this. So if there are any questions, please ask away.
Yeah, do we have to do this every month? We can't do it like for 3 months or 6 months in the future, or?
That's a great question, Commissioner Miyagi. So yes, the adoption is apparently only good for 30 days. So it would cover the 30 days since the commission only meets once a month. We have had to do it once. We have had to do it every meeting. It is anticipated that at the March meeting, staff's understanding is that boards and commissions will be meeting in person, which council has started to do now. So Nadia and I just recently went through a training for how to host these hybrid meetings. Hybrid is mostly for the public. to be able to participate in person or remotely, but the commission will be in person in chambers. As of now, they're anticipating that will take place in March.
Okay, so this will be our last virtual meeting.
Unless conditions change.
Okay. And Santa Clara County is still has the mask mandate, I believe.
That's right. Masks are still in place here in Santa Clara County and of course in Palo Alto as well.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the adoption of the resolution? Authorized teleconferencing for the next meeting? Of the Public Art Commission? Okay, Ben?
So moved half-heartedly.
Okay, let's do our roll call. Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walczak,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. All right, now we are on to our non-action item of business, our annual work plan for council. Dun, dun, dun.
Yay.
So hopefully you all had a chance to look at the attachments that were sent to you as part of the council packet. Part of what council is asking for is not only an update from last year's work plan. So we attached last year's work plan onto the agenda. So we can add a column perhaps that gives an update to the council on what has been achieved or where we are in achieving those goals. And then the second one is the priorities that were set at the September retreat. So just as a refresher, you know, the Public Art Commission typically has done the retreat in September after the budget season, after we know how much funding has come in from Percent for Art, and then looks at what all is on the table already and what are the priorities for the next year or two. So that's why we've typically done that in September. Now that we are doing these work plans that are due to council in the spring, we are revisiting those priorities and looking at them to see, do those still make sense, and or which projects make sense to have as examples within those priorities. So the hope was that each of you would have a chance to look at the priorities and look at the projects in process, of which we have quite a few, and make some recommendations this evening to Commissioner Miyagi and Vice Chair Gordon, who have graciously taken up the mantle to be the ad hoc committee to draft this work plan, to make recommendations as to what projects might be good examples to set within that. So with that, it's really intended to be the commission's discussion, and we're here to entertain any questions or clarifications you may have. And of course, it's wonderful to have Councilmember Koo here to help us as well.
I was actually wondering if Councilwoman Koo would be interested in speaking just about the process last year and about anything that we can be thinking about as we create our plan for this year.
You know, I think the process has also had a little bit of adjustment since we redid our workbook for commissions and boards. So this is the first time it's rolling out. I know that's a little bit confusing, but I had looked over your work plan and it looks like you guys have pretty much put everything in place. I'm sorry to say that I hadn't followed it last year, you know, in terms of what public art was doing, but you know, I've seen all the work. So I think just a report back as Ms. DiMarzio said, that, you know, if you have a column showing what work has been accomplished and what were some of the feedback from the audience, you know, that would be one way to go. But I think the work plan looks pretty good to me from what I saw.
Great, thank you. Very helpful. I'm going to just open it up. Let's just talk.
So, I mean, we have some really great priorities that we put forth for our work plan last year. Maybe we could go through those and see if those are priorities we want to stick with, or maybe edit. I see the priorities in work plan, that building community, racial justice, and public art education, but I'm actually looking at the work plan that has the appendix attached. It's the one that we actually submitted to the council with all the details. Yeah, that one is what I was looking at. And just wondering how people felt about maybe going through each of these and talking about them a little bit. How does the commission feel about that?
Yeah,
what do you-
I think that's good. Yes, it's nice. I'm letting you kind of lead a little bit too, because you and Ben are going to be working on it. So I think they're just starting from the top and kind of going through everything.
That's what I
Makes
was thinking,
complete sense.
because I mean, we'll probably use the same template again, right? Ben, do you agree with that? And
Yes.
because I think it was really, I mean, the commission spent a lot of time getting this in place and feeling comfortable with it. So I like the format, and I'm also just really proud of what was accomplished last year. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, how do you want to do this, Nia? Do you want us to just kind of read through it, or make?
Sure. Yeah, let's start from the beginning.
suggestions?
Yeah. And I also wanted to say that I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel, because it's obviously here. And I think just adding or removing a few things here and there from each appendix is really all we need to do. I think we have a lot here that we're continuing. So essentially just reiterating that it was successful, and we decided that because it was successful, we're going to continue, or, you know, it wasn't successful. Why not?
Yeah.
But I think keeping most of the bare bones
I
would be my
have a
suggestion.
question.
Yep.
Are we, pardon me, is the reason we're leaving the things on that have been launched and finished so that we can include feedback? Is that the purpose of having the things that are in the recent past there? So kind of the larger council can look at how it was received, or what's the purpose of having things that are finished still on here?
So this is not a current plan. This is just our last year plan. And we're
Right.
just looking at it now. So we can strip all of that out of there for the new plan that we submit. So we
Okay.
may choose, for example, not to have the temporary murals pilot as an appendix to, as an example, right? Because we've already shown that to the council, and it was successful, and it is now completed. They're still up and hanging there for people to enjoy. And I believe that they really were beneficial to the city of Palo Alto, but we don't have to have that in there anymore. You know, we can rewrite that priority and goal and go with something new if we want to.
And I saw that this, at least for this first one, the temporary murals pilot, it looked like the duration ended at 2021, but they're still up. So does that make it a current project? Is there any plans to take anything down, or are we just going to leave them up and perhaps add to them in the future?
So if I may, there are a couple of things at play here. One of the things that was requested of the liaisons to make sure is included is an update, a status update on the previous plan that was submitted to council. So what we would recommend is that we take this previous plan and add a column with a status update. So for instance, yes, that the temporary murals pilot received a lot of very positive feedback. Those were all installed. To answer your question, Commissioner Waltuck, they are all still in very good shape. And given all of the focus and attention on enlivening commercial corridors, it seems, and they're in good shape, it feels premature to take them down at a time where we're trying to activate those spaces unless we were going to do another round of those murals. So staff is monitoring them to make sure that they look good, that they're not peeling off the walls or overly faded or anything like that. But right now we're sort of letting them stay because those commercial corridors really, I think, could use that animation.
I agree with you, and I don't know if this is an appropriate comment, but I was thinking because they are in good shape and they're also, some of them seem a little small on the wall, but I love the idea of continuing some of these temporary murals, printed on the vinyl, and then just adding them instead of replacing them. So then you almost get a really interesting mosaic effect on some of the barer walls on which this art is. And then if they become in disrepair, since they are temporary and have to come down, then something can replace it. But is it appropriate in this iteration of the plan to say we'll add to that, or does the temporary murals just come off the docket here?
Well, as of now, there isn't funding that's been allocated for it. I will say that at the time we did the artist selection for the first 8 artists for the murals, they were ranked. So there are other artists who are on standby, and staff had hoped to get more permissions for locations because they can go on storefront windows. They can go, on a lot of different textures without pulling off paint, without destroying windows. And it was really difficult to get permissions. So that's why we just did the phase 1. We were hoping to get more property owners who would come forward, raising their hands saying, hey, we'd love for you to put one here. That was just not the experience we got. As for your question about adding additional ones onto the buildings, there could be some of those conversations that take place. But that is not something that the commission has approved or funded at this point. So it seems premature to put it in a plan.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in favor of putting the status column in there because these are 3 very successful projects, and I think we have to beat our drum a little bit here to say that. And for the micro grants and for Code Art 3, in the future, I think these are good springboards to launch those new programs. And it shows that we're doing something and we're not just putting stuff out there. I think it's important that you show that these projects have been completed.
I agree. We'll just have to monkey with the layout and try to figure out how to do that. So it's easy for council to look and just say, oh, successful and done. I'm just trying to, but that's for us to do, Ben. We'll figure that out and present that to the commission next month, I guess. So you guys can see how we keep that and make it relevant.
And staff is happy to help you with that too.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and at least made the point that this was done from our retreat. So that's what we're going to try to do is now update this to go to council.
Right. So I'm wondering with that, our first priority and goal, develop public art that aids in Palo Alto's recovery from the COVID-19 crisis by supporting projects that encourage pedestrian traffic and the use of pedestrian-friendly streets that are located near Palo Alto neighborhoods, as well as commercial corridors and storefronts, and that advance the public art master plan goals. So do we want to reword that? Do you want to keep the same priority and goal, or do you want to really lean into the priorities that we marked down for 2021 and the community priority, which is the first one, building community priority? What are your thoughts on that? And if I'm going about this in the wrong way, please let me know, because I'm just trying to figure out how we get these two documents together.
I
So-
mean, I think in a way that the priority of the temporary murals is in support of the building community. Our first overall, building community priority, number one there.
Right.
So I think it's in line and consistent. And I think that was one of the things that we worked hard on originally in drafting this plan, is that everything was in support of at least one of these priorities.
Right, so one recommendation would be to take last year's plan and simply add a column with status,
Okay.
and then start new with the priorities that were adopted in August,
Mhm.
and use those to fill in relevant projects, in similar format.
Right.
But if the commission is comfortable with these priorities for this year, let's work with the new priorities and then the new projects that fill in within that as well. So there would be two separate documents.
Wait,
Okay.
Elise, when you say the new priorities, are you saying something different than these three for the work plan 21, 20, 22?
No, I'm saying the priorities that were adopted in August, which are
Okay.
these before you.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, of course.
That's really helpful, because I mean, I really like the document that we submitted last year, and I would love to just update council. Here's what's been done on that. But then to turn now to our new 21, 22 priorities and build the document around that would be, obviously fun and what we're supposed to be focusing on. So
Yeah, and some of it we can just take also and just adapt it a little bit. But we have a few things like the micro grants. We have the race and public equity public art program in King Plaza. So should we come up with a list? I guess I'm thinking there's so much here. So should we go through again to read the priorities for this 2021, 22 just out loud? And then we can kind of come up with like 3 projects, 3 or 4.
I love that idea,
Helpful? Yeah.
Chair Taylor,
Okay.
'cause that kind of streamlines the process. And I really like that. Yeah.
And then Elise or Nadia, I apologize if this was sent out. No, it was. It's a status. So the status update, right? Also, okay, I have it on my computer too. But let's start. Should I just go ahead and read the priorities? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So building community priority, develop public art that encourages playing, belonging, community participation, and that promotes shared experiences in and around Palo Alto neighborhoods and commercial corridors. Everybody happy with that wording?
Yes.
I am too. Lisa, did you have a second to hear that?
Sorry, yes, I'm sorry, I had a
Okay.
little interruption, but
No
yes.
problem, it happens. Okay.
Okay.
So our second priority is racial justice. Develop public art projects that will continue to advance cultural inclusion and social and racial equity.
Great.
Any other changes, thoughts? Nope, okay. And then public art education, widen and strengthen education and advocacy for public art, including through the rollout and implementation of the California Avenue District Master Plan and the Baylands Art Plan, and PAMP long-term goals while responding to current issues and supporting a wider network of artists. I guess, could we take Baylands Art Plan out at this point?
It's funny. I thought the same thing, Chair Taylor. I was like, oh, although we do have the new pedestrian bridge, which I have to say does link us to the Baylands, and it really is a beautiful project, and naturally beautiful, but also the art installed there really reflects the Baylands. But that project can fall under multiple priorities, I believe.
Why would we take it out? Is there, because we don't have anything currently, since that project is completed, is it because we don't have anything currently going, or do we have potential eventually to do something with that? Or is that only, was the Baylands Art Plan, excuse my ignorance, was that only for that one pedestrian bridge project?
No, it wasn't even for that pedestrian bridge project. Tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, fellow commissioners and Elise and Nadia, but the Baylands Art Project or art plan is its own plan, and I don't believe the pedestrian bridge was part of that. So,
but is that under the purview of the Public Art Commission or something separate?
it is. It's a collaboration, wouldn't you say, Elise?
So the Baylands Public Art Plan was done in conjunction with the Parks overarching plan for the Baylands as well. Similar to, that was more of a collaboration, but it was this recognition when we did the Public Art Master Plan in 2016 that there are certain corridors that are going to require a more in-depth plan than what we had commissioned for that overall plan. So like our California Avenue specific plan, we also completed one for that Baylands corridor. But the bike and pedestrian bridge, because that's a municipal percent for art project, that was a separate project. And so that is now completed. So it would make sense in the work plan to not have that be part of it, but perhaps look back at that Baylands plan and see if there is something else within that it might make sense to think about in the future.
So in that case, we would leave it in there.
The Baylands plan, yes.
Just we would leave it as, I mean, not the specific pedestrian bridge because that's completed, but to leave the Baylands Art Plan in the priorities.
Yes.
Makes sense. I mean, it doesn't hurt. So, not gonna. Okay.
So the Baylands plan, as well as the newly adopted California Avenue plan, especially with all the changes taking place in that district, would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with these. Ben, sorry.
There are long-range plans of what's going to happen in these different areas. So as we complete certain things, like in the Public Art Master Plan, we've completed some of those goals, but we're not going to just take that out, but that's still our roadmap, if you will, for the future and what we're going to do. And we can just check off things that we've done. So I think it's important that we live in the Baylands and the California Avenue, because like I was saying, those are a guide for us going into the future.
And someone brought up code art, which we are in the throes of submitting a grant application. I have the window open now for code art 3 for October 2023. So that is definitely something that we're working toward.
So could we include that in this priority if you believe we're going to be doing some planning for it and maybe artist calls for that, Elise, or do you think that's too early?
I think that's a great question, because there has to be some qualification on that, because the commission has not approved funding for it, but it is something that, I would say, and we can work with you on language, but something along the lines of, planning for and laying the groundwork for a possible cohort 2023.
Okay.
Right. So that it's not evident that it's been promised or that funds are committed at this point, but that it is something that it's on the radar.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If a developer is doing, they're doing a big project and 1% gets, they want to determine what the 1% has to go for, and they want to do something in the Baylands, like, then would that then bring that issue back up to kind of front and center for the commission, or does it not work that way?
It doesn't work that way. So, so they can commission artwork equivalent to 1% of their construction cost at their site integrated with their project, or they pay the funds in lieu to the Public Art Fund.
Okay,
But
so
they
they
can't.
can't determine anywhere in Palo Alto for any reason with their funding.
No,
Okay,
no, those funds, the Public Art Commission can pool as appropriate and utilize for other projects, temporary and permanent. So that's, for instance, how part of Code Art was funded, utilizing funds that were derived from downtown projects that paid in lieu, and that funding went towards supporting Code Art.
okay, thank you.
But that was something that went to the commission, not the people who contributed to it.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. Lauren, do you want to take? I'll let you
Oh, I
take
was
the
gonna
next
ask-
one, Ben.
Chair Taylor, I would recommend that playing, belonging, and community participation. I think we can put under there the new call for micro grants. I also am putting this out there. I think that our artists in residence can fall under building community priority, as well as actually Rios Mayos, I'm sorry if I'm not saying his name
Magos.
properly, Magos, can probably fall under all three priorities.
I
Do
think
you guys-
absolutely he's under
Because-
all three.
It's going to be such an amazing project, and really he's going to cover all three of those priorities. Do you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I have a suggestion actually, and you're more than welcome to say, that's just too much. But what if we were to take the document and have all of our, excuse me, let me remember the language, our appendixes in one column or two column, whatever, like the appendix name and the appendix, or it says appendix 1, 2, and then the project name next to it. And then like 3 columns after that, one for each priority.
Uh-huh.
And the check, and then there's a check box. You can
Kinda like
check
the
each
master.
box.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then we have, so we're not separating, because I think a lot of our projects fit more than one priority, most of them. So rather than trying to put them into categories, if we come up with a list of how many projects we want to talk about or discuss with
Okay.
in our work plan, and then list what they are, and then we'll say, you know, description and impact, but then they can kind of see like, okay, we have like 5 projects that, like, there are 5 projects that are in this category, 5 are in, but then they overlap. Does that make sense? I'm trying to.
I do like it in that it really forces us to match our projects with our determined priorities, right? So and it's a nice visual. You can get a sense right away that everything we're doing is in service of these priorities.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm kind of, that's a good way of a visual. Yeah, I'm a visual person, so yeah, something that affects, so basically having everything in one long line, but then matching. But I think you're nodding your head like you kind of understand what I'm saying, but apparently.
I might not be understanding the layout, but if Ben gets it, then he'll be able to share it with me.
And I have a question for Vice Mayor Koo. Can we include pictures in the work plan?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I mean,
I think that gives a little more impact to it.
not only that, and for many of us, like Chair Taylor, visual, right? So I'm visual, and so I was very grateful when you said, let's have more visual on there. And pictures are all, it's 1,000 words, right? So yeah.
All right, great, thank you.
And we did, Ben, just to time in, we did have some beautiful visuals in our last one at the bottom, the last 4 pages. or so.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So should we go through each priority and kind of come up with some different projects within each one, or do you want to just come up with an entire list and then match them to priorities? Or Lauren and Ben, because you also are going to be the ones gathering everything together. So what would make it easier for you as well?
I think emailing us your thoughts to both Lauren and I, and then Lauren and I can discuss those and then come back with a document for the commission.
So I, just as a point of correction, it would need to come to staff, and then staff can compile that input and then work with the ad hoc committee.
Even better.
Okay, yeah, just Brown Act. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
And since we have time now to discuss some of these that we may or may not agree on where they fit. So for example, these projects which have just launched, the pedestrian, I'm back to that pedestrian bridge because I really like it. I think we could put that under building community, mainly because I don't know if you go to hang out there, people definitely hang out together at the art installation. And maybe that falls under the public art education priority too. We would have to think about that, like what impact that has. What do you guys think?
Well, because that one is completed, would it not drop off of this new document?
Oh, maybe.
Right. So I think a point of clarification is with the previous work plan, we're going to add a column to give the status.
Yeah.
We'll be able to say, you know, that whatever feedback we've got or attendance or whatever metrics we may have on it.
Right.
But then the new work plan is a forward-thinking document.
Yeah.
What is on the docket for the next year?
Yeah. And I guess it was being installed for so long, maybe I'm just not getting over it. So let's move on.
We're so pleased you like it.
Yes, I love it. So,
And
okay.
we've gotten some great letters from the public too,
Good.
some real admiration for that that art installation as well.
Yes. Sorry about that, Lisa. You keep telling me the same thing, and I'm like, no, I still want to put it in there.
We love it too. I love it.
So, okay. Well, Ben, do you want to work just on our own then, or how do you want to do this? And Chair Taylor, what is your preference?
I mean, I'm flexible. I'm just looking kind of at all the appendixes from last time, and I'm thinking about which ones are still in motion, are continuing, and I could recommend them, the ones I would say should be on the top of your list now. Just maybe since we're all in person.
Yeah.
In person. But I was thinking, first of all, the Art Lift micro grants, the second installment. The King residency.
Yes, yay.
And then
We have more
kind of thing
murals
was more murals.
that will be installed in the
Public safety.
Deer Kill Ave. Yeah. So we'll have the second round of those coming up. The selection has already been done, but the installation hasn't happened yet. So
They're in design now. We're getting some early proofs at this point.
nice.
Mhm.
All right.
And then there's Code Art 3.
Mhm.
Although we haven't approved that one yet. So I guess the other thought I had, and if this at least is kosher or not, let me know, let us know. Another thought I had is we could have another little section about potential projects that we want to do. So like I'm all for the murals. Of course, we have to have that on a meeting agenda. But it is something that we could all come up with some ideas of things we'd like to see possibly happen in the next year. But just so the council knows that we're kind of thinking even more forward thinking than just forward thinking. If we want to fill up our priority work plan.
I think the priority
I don't
work
know if
plan
that makes sense.
isn't going to have trouble getting filled. The time where the commission usually talks about potential projects is when we do that retreat and we've looked at everything that's already happening, like all the private development, the temporary, the municipal projects. And so I would be hesitant to recommend that the commissioners start coming with potential projects at a time where we're putting forward a public document to the council on what the work plan is.
Okay, that's fair.
That seems like a retreat option that then the commission would decide on as a body as to what makes sense to move forward with.
Okay.
So at this point, it seems like really, given what you just said, Elise, really what's happening with this current plan is we're just taking off the things that have been completed. And then we're leaving the other things because, I mean, the King residency was on there. Now we've just, the only thing that's happened between then and now is that we've selected the person. So, I mean, basically this is a definitive set, and then we just need to delete the things that are completed. Do we need to, first of all, that's one question, is that so? And my second question is, aside from adding some formatting things, which I totally agree with Chair Taylor about adding the priorities in columns and check marking those, is one other expectation now that we may reprioritize. In other words, say, move the appendices around. Like, are we supposed to renumber it, or do we just leave it in the order, delete the things that have been finished, and tweak this document a little?
So what I recommend is that you just think of them as two separate documents. So there's the previous work plan, which we can put an update to. And then there's a new work plan, which may take a slightly different format, as Chair Taylor recommended. So, but I think they need to be two separate documents instead of trying to hang on or delete what was before. Thinking about, that was last year's work plan, here's the status. Now here are the priorities in this year's work plan. And it may look slightly different. And we can certainly work on what those images look like. And we have some good suggestions that have come forward tonight to start that process. But I think that it seems like in the conversations, that's where some of the commissioners are getting a little tangled up in, are we just updating and deleting and adding? I would say think of it as two different documents.
Okay. And so there's not a requirement, like this looks like it's a very determined format, calling things appendix and things like that. So we could have just our own new document that could say projects 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are in service of our priorities that we've determined, and this is what they are, end of story.
Yes, that's a great question, Commissioner Waltek, and I'm glad you brought it up. So last year was the first year that the boards and commissions were asked to do this. And the template that was suggested as part of the handbook really didn't fit for public art. And each of the boards and commissions, and as I reached out to the other liaisons, everyone kind of had to make their own format, which I think may have been a bit of a struggle for council. But because the scope of what each board and commission does, and ours are largely project-based that go to year, it's very different than other boards and commissions. We all kind of did our own thing. So we do have leeway at this time to work with that format. That being said, we have heard from the clerks that they are working on trying to standardize what that looks like, but we don't have that yet. So at this point, I think we need to work with what makes sense for us. And then if a new template comes out, we will adjust it as necessary.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, can you clarify one point for me? What is the time frame of this work plan? Is it the fiscal year, or is it starting in April or what?
I don't know if Vice Mayor Ku may be able to help. My understanding is that council is looking to review these in April for adoption. And so anyway, Vice Mayor Ku, can you?
That's what I understand it to be too. It's in April that April keeps coming up.
So yes, so it doesn't quite jive with the fiscal year. We've sort of thought, tying it to the priorities in August. It wasn't that long ago, but I think both the council and the boards and commissions are trying this out, and it's not perfect. So we're all just trying to figure this out, but they are supposed to review and hopefully approve them in April, or I guess they could potentially come back with any questions or clarifications.
All right, so are we looking at the work plan that started in May 1? Or the beginning of I'm still not clear of, I understand that in April that the council is going to review the plans, but what would be the start date of the work plan? Would it be
That's
May?
a great question. We could use May 1st, as you suggested, as a starting date. The reality is that these projects and these priorities are already in motion. So, so I think if we want to put May 1st on it, I think that makes sense. I don't know that it makes that big of a difference as far as our action plan and what we're doing.
I just really would like it to start on a quarter someplace,
Right.
in July or in a quarter. This beginning month of a quarter, I think would make it easier to actually do bookkeeping after that.
That's a great point.
So Lauren and Ben, I'm going to put you two on the spot again. Or Ben, Lauren, Ben. So, I mean, as of right now, you two will be working with each other, right? And Elisa, also, I'm going to ask you to remind us the policy, because last time there was a little bit of not miscommunication, but Brown Act conversation about reviewing the document once it's been wordsmith. And so can you just remind us, so when Ben and Lauren work on it, they'll send it to you to review. Can you send it to each of the commissioners again one more time to look at it one more time, and then send any recommendations or any edits back to you? Or is that not, I felt like there was some issue there last time, and I was hoping we can just clarify. So
Chair Taylor, I think what you're remembering is that there was a question about having a live Google document that each of the commissioners could go in and work on, which there's too much interaction there. It becomes, it's not great for the Brown Act, so we don't like to do that. We do not encourage that. So we can, as long as staff is the central hub and the commissioners, other than the ad hoc committee, they're the only ones speaking directly, staff can compile comments and then give that feedback to the ad hoc committee. But the idea is that a draft would come out with the next packet, and each of the commissioners would come back with any final edits or suggestions that could be made at the March meeting, so it could be adopted and cleaned up in time to get into the packet to council for April.
thank you for clarifying that. Okay.
Right. But I think what you were thinking of is the Google Doc problem.
Probably, yeah.
Wait,
Several
sorry,
things there.
sorry, Elise, just so I am totally clear. Commissioner Miyagi and Gordon are going to work on it. They'll send it to you, and then it will be part of the packet. We'll review it, and then we won't make comments or seal everything until our next meeting. Is that what you just said?
Yes, and you may submit comments in advance to staff only.
Okay,
So we can compile those comments and have those ready to share with the ad hoc committee.
but we will receive it as part of our regular receiving of packet before our meeting. It
You
won't be
will
a separate
receive
thing.
it. You might receive it before then, but you will definitely receive it as part of the packet, the official packet as well.
Now,
Thank
are
you.
we looking for the March meeting to approve this to go to council?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the council packets, everything has to get submitted and go through a chain of approval that's a little bit lengthy.
All right.
And it takes several weeks.
Okay.
And the packet has to be ready 2 weeks in advance of their meeting. So we're shooting for a March approval so that we can get it into the council packet for that April date.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Lauren, I think you and I need to talk offline here and see what our plan of action is going to be.
That's right.
So the two of you can compare notes, and then perhaps we can regroup with staff and
Okay, so-
figure out a game plan and a timeline next week.
So you guys
Good.
will probably have to take the bridge out again. I'm just kidding.
Vice Chair
Um,
Gordon, it's wonderful that you love the bridge so much.
Well, it's
And
finally
you're not the
here.
only one.
You know, it took a long time to get here and it's here. So, no, but we have plenty of projects that we can fill in the work plan with, and I'm really excited. So yes, Ben and I will connect and then we'll connect with staff. So it'll be great.
Wonderful. Thank you both for taking on this adventure.
Sure. You're welcome.
Okay. Well, that's it for our action / non-action items. We are ready to say adieu. But before that, any questions, comments, announcements? Anybody? I guess, Lisa, do you want at some point to have an agenda item to discuss temporary murals? Would that be something?
Well, it sounds like if it's not funded, that it's not in play yet. Is that correct, Elise?
Well, it wouldn't make sense to add it into the work plan, but it is something that could be put on a future commission agenda for discussion. And then staff can update you on the lifespan of the existing ones, what some of the permissions are. Perhaps, talk through funding ramifications should the commission want to fund another round of these. So we can
Yeah, that'd be
certainly
great.
add that onto the March agenda. Yep,
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
great. Happy
Maybe we'll
to.
have some more information about Midtown.
Yeah,
We
as well.
should by then.
that will be
Good.
great too. Be interested to see what's happening there. So,
And I have one announcement that I was speaking to somebody who works at the Asian Army Museum in San Francisco, and they said that I should go and check out Team Lab exhibition. I saw the one in Palo Alto, but they said this one was even better. So if you've seen it, great. If you haven't, I would suggest you check it out.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. It is great.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
urge everybody to go see it.
I got
Okay.
completely lost in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the exit.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost ran into
I
a
actually-
wall a couple of times, so I didn't want to leave.
I've tried
great.
twice. So I think now it's open like kind of the back end of the week. They've limited the hours because I went on again to check it out. So eventually I will make it. I've got to make it there before it leaves, right? So
Yeah. Wonderful. Anybody else have any exciting news to share?
Going to LA for the Freeze Art Fair and maybe the Felix Art Fair tonight.
All right.
tonight you're going, you said?
Yep.
I'm telling you that Elise DeMarso, she just doesn't miss a beat. She's finishing this meeting and racing off to the airport. Well, good. Yeah, report back. I'll check out your Facebook page. Hopefully, I've seen some images coming, and so I hope that will be cool.
Do you follow Jerry Saltz? The Jerry Saltz, the art critic, right? He had a funny Instagram post.
Oh, we did? Okay, I'll
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
on my Instagram. Jerry
for the
Salt.
art- Yeah.
Yes, he's a New York Times critic. He's actually also married to Roberta Smith, who's the other big, it's like too much power for one couple, but they're fabulous to follow as far as art on Instagram and social media.
Okay, thank you.
I won't tell you, but you'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, thanks, Nia. That's great. Well, have a safe trip, Elise.
Will do.
Yeah, have fun,
Okay.
safe
And
travel.
have fun, yeah.
Yeah, and have fun.
Always.
And Vice Chair Koo, thank you for joining us. Right, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
your position
No,
now?
thank
Vice?
you.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, please. It's a pleasure having you, and please come back
I
often.
sure
And
will.
if you have questions, comments, thoughts, we love to hear them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:58.
Thank you, Chair Taylor.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. This is
Good
wonderful.
night.
And thank you again, Ben and Lauren, for taking on this wonderful project.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vice Mayor Crew.
Okay,
Thank you.
good night.
All right,
Good
good
night.
night.